What's up, everybody? Welcome to tonight's episode of the Not Your Average Mark Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, the Tutorial Boss Guapo. With me is the man Stephanie McMahon calls when she needs beard info for Triple H, the one and only Mike Caldwell, and the man who said, Dusty, keep it funky, baby, Mr. Rick Elsey. What's up, gentlemen?
How you doing there?
How you doing?
So it's been a crazy week. Which started off Saturday with Squared Circle Pro, some things we will talk about tonight. Lots of questions left hanging up in the air. So if you haven't seen what happened, if you weren't live, if you weren't watching heckyeahradio.com, you missed out on some things that you're going to want to know about. But before we do, let me get into some thank yous. First, I want to thank Ross and the boys from Labor 12 for the intro-outro music. Track's called Head Rush, album's called Monsters. They got all sorts of cool stuff going on. Check them out, labor12.com, laborxii.com. I want to thank Joe and American Legacy for our Not Your Average merch. We got the hats, we got the beanies, we got the skull caps, we're getting the shirts. It's all sorts of good stuff. I want to thank JRebs 3D Printing for this piece of awesomeness right here. If you've got a logo you want to see lit up like this, get in touch with Cameron. He'll get you taken care of. That's jrebs3dprinting.com. Thank you to heckyeahradio.com. If you happen to miss our show, shame on you for missing the show. But if it happens, you can check out the audio from the podcast at heckyeahradio.com by clicking on the Not Your Average Mark button. Thank you to Blind Ambition Studios for all our awesome graphics, to the WrestlingSociety.com for including us in their podcast room, and of course to the guy, Patrick, making sure everything looks good, and that's a hard thing to do sometimes. Of course, I talk all the time about our website, the job that he did on that. If you haven't checked it out, notyouraverage.mark.com, go check that out. But we've got something new going on. We have created a Discord server, and I want to talk for just a minute about that, some of the things we're going to do. We are going to do a few new things. Of course, you know, we do our main roster moments here on the podcast. That's going to be changing up just a little bit because we will be doing a live watch along on the Discord for Raw and for SmackDown. We will still talk about some of the main roster moments, but we won't cover the show completely. You can find our Discord server on any of our socials. As a matter of fact, if you're on Twitch right now, you can go to the About section. You can do the same thing on Facebook, on YouTube, on any of our platforms. There is a link to the Discord. Join up because we're going to do some really cool things. There are some things that Discord allows us to do that Twitch does not. So make sure you check it out. It's going to be really cool. Click all the things, as J-Reb said. J-Reb, what's up, brother? Subscribing for a 21st month. Damn near 2 years with Cameron, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. BCW Texas subscribing for a 13th month. Thank you so much for that. It's going to be a lot of fun here tonight. We've got Jello in the chat. We've got Daddy Boss 74. We've got, of course, J-Reb. Guys, thank you for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But let's get into it, shall we? Let's get into some main roster moments. Is it just me, or does Italy love them some Randy Orton? They sang his song forever. It was good to see, though. And I feel like it's a good start to the Randy KO feud. You got KO saying, look, I'm going to forgive you for choosing Cody, and then you can forgive me for the pile driver, and we'll go after the tag titles because we were so close, so let's have a tag match at Mania. What do you say? And Randy says, take your apologies, shove it, because you dropped me on my head. I started hearing voices again. I'm going to kick your head off your shoulders. I think that's a good way to start it. What do you guys think?
I agree. I said, whenever it came on, I was really into hearing what kind of gaslighting that Kevin Owens decided to put out for the night. And I think Randy Orton had the appropriate response for it.
I think so. Rick, what do you think about it?
I thought it was a good segment. It was a hot crowd. I'm really enjoying them being overseas. I would like to see them stay overseas for about 6 to 8 months because American crowds are crap. and they don't know how to they don't know how to act. They sit on their hands. They chant, "We're awesome." They what everybody to death. They throw beach balls. They're entitled and they want to heckle, and they don't deserve good wrestling. So I think that WWE should stay overseas for the majority of the year. They are the world wrestling entertainment for all intents and purposes. So, and how can you miss something if it doesn't go away?
I mean, that's very true, but I mean, shots fired at the American crowd. I mean, we light it up a little bit here
am I
in the
wrong?
United States.
Am I wrong?
Maybe a little bit.
In the big scheme of things, are American crowds even near the level of excited participation that overseas crowds are?
They're not, but for a reason.
That's what I thought. Okay.
They don't get WWE live on Netflix as often as we do here in America. They don't get WWE live on the USA Network the way we do here. So,
hence, entitled fans take it away from them.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree there.
That's not shocking.
That takes us into our first match. Drew McIntyre, Shinsuke Nakamura going up against Jimmy Uso, Damian Priest. This one was a little weird for me. Not because the match had problems. It was a good match. But the teams are like really, really random in this one. And it's, I don't know. I wasn't real sure about the tag teams. The action was great in it. There's some good back and forth in this one. Priest hits the South of Heaven on Nakamura, gets the win, and of course we get the Drew beat down afterwards. So it was pretty, for what it was good.
It got the story
I heard
across.
A lot of people.
Go ahead, Rick.
I heard a lot of people online griping about the fact that it wasn't Joe Hendry as the surprise, and it was like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. Like, what the hell does Joe Hendry have to do with Jay's build up to WrestleMania? What does Joe Hendry have? I mean, he's Scottish. Big deal.
I mean, that's fair. It
completely out of place.
Like, I will agree with you on that one. Just because it's your hometown doesn't mean you need the television time. I agree with you on that. Putting Joe Hendry in this match wouldn't make any sense other than to say, look, we grabbed your hometown boy and we put him in a match. And I personally like Joe Hendry and think he deserves better than that. So I'll go with you on that one. Looking over at the chat, Odessa MC says, dang, Rick is full heel now. And Eska 1981 says, love you, Rick, and then hides behind the couch. And J-Reb saying Rick is in his Cena arc.
I'm not in my John Cena arc, and I don't subscribe to heel and babyface. What's happening with me is very, very real, and I'm not doing a heel turn. I'm just deciding to stop putting up with people's ridiculous bullshit.
That's fair. We go from that into a match that everyone wants to see. It's the feud everybody wants. Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu. And I'm going to give it that. It is the feud everyone wants to see, but here's my issue. While it's understandable at this point, going into Mania, it makes for only one possible ending when you have the WWE not wanting to put one over the other at all, ever. And that makes for one ending. Oh, you get one ending, a dirty one. That's all you can get. And this was no exception. You had Tama Tonga and Solo come out and cost Jacob the match, which he was quite angry about. We would find out later on. That brings out LA Knight to even the numbers. But the cool thing about this one was it was stipulated at the beginning of the match that the winner of this one is going to get a shot at LA Knight for the U.S. title. So with a disqualification, we get Strowman versus LA Knight.
They're telling a story, and pretty much I'm one of those let's hide behind a tree and watch and see how it goes. They got some things going on, and I say that with Fatu, they're getting pretty deep into this story, and we're probably going to get something within the next couple of weeks as the catalyst that's going to do do something and start this next chapter with him.
I could agree with that. Rick, what do you think about it?
Jacob Fatu is easily top 5 hottest guys right now, and putting spotlight on him is smart. I need him to have a meaningful match at WrestleMania. I know that we're getting real close to the card, and there's probably only going to be 7 matches per night if Triple H does what he did last year. And that means we'll probably get at least 2, if not 3 or 4 multi-man matches. I don't need Jacob Fatu slammed in the middle of a multi-man match. He needs a standout moment at WrestleMania.
I can agree with that.
I can agree with that as well.
The question is that meaningful match against Solo, or do we hold off on that one and can let that build some more?
I mean, you could pull that trigger. I don't know that that's really necessary to pull that trigger, because if you do something like that, I think it's too tempting to have it end in a schmoz, because I don't think they're going to want him to destroy Solo. So I think I might want to hold off on that. Honestly, even though it's probably going to end up in a multi-man match, because I think the secondary titles are all going to be involved in multi-man matches.
Probably.
If it was me, I'd go ahead and do LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu, and I'd put the title on Jacob Fatu.
I can see
I
it.
can agree with that.
Yeah.
Because LA Knight doesn't need it. We've said it 100,000 times.
He doesn't.
LA Knight can have it. He can chase it. He can win it. He doesn't need to hold it.
No, you're absolutely right on that one. I've made no bones about how I feel about Tiffany Stratton. It's Tiffy time. I can't with the Tiffy time, but I will say this. Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair against each other on the mic, whether it's a side-by-side feed like this one was or face-to-face in the ring, is absolute gold.
Tiffany's going to have to turn it up a little bit if she's going to keep going toe-to-toe with Charlotte Flair.
True.
Because Charlotte Flair almost ate her lunch this last time.
It was close, but
it was very much a John Cena, Roman Reigns moment.
You know, and I've heard that same comparison, and I agree with it. I think you're right on that. I think Tiffy's going to do her turn up in the ring, though.
Well, she can do her turn up in the ring, but we all understand that WWE thrives on promo.
Very true.
So, and I think here's the thing that's wrong, and it's not really Tiffany's fault. Tiffany is being plugged as a babyface right now. Tiffany Stratton is not a natural babyface. Tiffany Stratton is a natural heel.
Yes.
And NXT Tiffany Stratton was on point with her promo. Tiffany doesn't know how to cut a babyface promo. She only knows how to cut a heel promo. So she's being asked to play against character with Charlotte Flair. And I think that that's because the fans just don't want to cheer for Charlotte. So, I mean, I think she's just going to have to try and tread water best she can, because Tiffany's being put in an unfair position. She hasn't been groomed to be babyface.
I can see that in development of this, you've got Charlotte that has multiple years of experience now. And you got Tiffany that's, she's still green. So you're not going to get perfection out of the deal. But what I see happening, and it would be a good training moment, on the job training, for Charlotte to come into WrestleMania, sweep her, get it over with, and then spend all the way up through SummerSlam having Tiffany chase and giving her that on-the-job training for being a babyface.
Well, that's what they're going to have to do. You're absolutely right, Mike. That's what they're going to have to do. But what they should have done, if you'll go back to the time period where The Rock was obviously a heel, but he was being plugged against other heels, but he wasn't changing his tone. The crowd came to him organically. And the thing with Tiffany Stratton is if she was just being Tiffany Stratton from NXT, which is what she was groomed to be, if she was that character versus Charlotte Flair, even though the crowd hates Charlotte, if Tiffany treated Charlotte like she would anybody else and not play to the babyface aspect of Charlotte's heel character, the crowd would come more organically to Tiffany anyway, and she would be more comfortable in her delivery. But they chose instead to shine her up and turn her into a baby face, and that's hurt her.
See that. We've got Jello in the chat saying Charlotte delivers the same type of promo whether she's a face or a heel. And honestly, I agree with that. I agree with that, but it's not a bad thing because just like you said, she's consistent. She's Charlotte Flair. Doesn't matter if she's face, doesn't matter if she's heel, she's Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte Flair can leave television for a year, walk right back on, and she's instantly the biggest star they have. Charlotte Flair is by far the definition of what a women's championship caliber wrestler is.
Agreed. Talking about women's wrestling, our next match is Zelina Vega versus Piper Niven. This was a good match, and it seemed like the crowd wasn't very into it, but I thought both ladies did a great job in this match. Like, Niven gets the win, and it's good to see her get one. And I don't think Zelina versus Chelsea and Company is over by a long shot.
I don't think it's over either, and I think the reason that the crowd seemed like they weren't into it was because I think they wanted to cheer for Piper, but they knew they weren't supposed to. And so I think that they were playing along, again, because they're actual fans who understand that you need to participate in the show and not rail against the show just because you're some entitled piece of crap. So, I mean, they were out there trying to play along, but their natural instinct was they wanted to cheer her. So it came off as wonky when, in America, it would have been a completely different story. You'd have an American wrestler that the crowd didn't enjoy, and you'd have a foreign wrestler that they should be booing. But if that foreign wrestler picked up a chair and hit that baby face with a chair, they'd find a reason to say, yay, let's do that again. Stupidest crap I've ever, oh my God.
Mr. Elsey on one tonight.
Did I mention that I don't really like wrestling fans that much? I think I've mentioned that.
You might have made some comment about that once or twice. The internet wrestling community, not your biggest happy place.
I mean, they're only 7% of the crowd, so everything they say doesn't matter anyway. But that 7%, I mean, I feel like they could easily be eradicated if that small of a number.
True. Well, we go from that into Liv Morgan versus Jade Cargill. The crowd was, however, very into this one. It was a good match, good back and forth. Liv on top for a little while, but Jade showed why she is such a dominant force in the WWE, right up until Naomi showed up, hit her with a belt. Liv hits Oblivion, gets the pin, and Naomi proceeds to beat the brakes off of Jade Cargill. And it's a side of Naomi we don't see very often.
She looked good. I love her new gear. She looked great.
The gear was good. What you got, Mike?
I like the fact that it was finally Naomi's turn to do something to Jade in front of the people. We had two showings here recently, one in the Elimination Chamber and one on SmackDown the week before, where Jade just came out and did the same to her. They beat the brakes off of her, and Naomi got no offense whatsoever. It told the story it needed to tell, but now we're past that point, and I'm glad Naomi is actually looking like she's not a punk.
Agreed. And I don't know. I was a fan of this new angry, violent side of Naomi. Like we've seen the glow up and the happy side and the Bailey's best friend and all of that. I was glad to see this one. I thought it worked.
I loved
well.
the fact that she was wearing the caution tape. It was very Owen Hart from the Newton. And I will absolutely love it if she gets promo time and she finds a way to work in enough is enough and it's time for a change.
Oh, I'll pop. I ain't gonna lie. I'll pop on that one.
Yes.
All right, so we go from there. Before we do, Jello says, to Rick's point, why is the biggest pop in American audiences for a table being pulled out? It's a throwback to the Dudleys. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
It's a throwback to the Dudleys. We want tables.
Yeah, but we'll ignore the story. We'll ignore what's going on in the match. We'll ignore everything about what's going on because we've decided in this moment we need a table. And you must satisfy us. So table. Even though the table in that moment makes no sense.
Fair point.
100% with him on that one.
It's a fair point. But we go into
the tables match and you're chanting for the table, that makes sense. If it's a random tag match and you're fighting on the floor and someone happens to lift the apron to grab a chair, and suddenly the crowd, oh, we don't like that. We must have a table right now. And we'll spend the next 10 minutes chanting for a freaking table and interrupt the match completely. And the American crowds are the only ones that do that.
Well, we've got the one and only, the OTB Lilith Blood in the chat says the furniture's more over than the wrestlers. I mean, it's a fair point.
Not if you don't do it all the time. If you don't give it to them all the time, they won't call for it all the time.
Well, we go into Los Garzas versus the Street Profits, and there will be some people that disagree with me on this, but in a show where you've got Liv Morgan versus Jade Cargill, and you've got Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu, this was 100% match of the night for me. All these guys are so athletic, they make it look easy. And the moves in this match were amazing. From Tez hitting the double press slam and landing on his feet, the Garza special, Berto's handspring, everything hit. And then, of course, Ford ends the match with his super way up in the sky frog splash to retain the tag titles, which it's about time they gave to the Street Profits, in my opinion.
Now, you talk so highly of that tag match. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
How many times in the last 2 months has Triple H given us that kind of an exciting tag match?
Depends on how you feel about
the one that you just described. Would you say that maybe is a rare occurrence that we got that kind of match that night?
It's not really a rare occurrence, in my opinion, because you've got teams like Motor City that are fast-paced and go. This was more of a chemistry thing, in my opinion. Like the chemistry between Los Garzas and the Street Profits made everything move smoothly, and like I said, they just make it look easy.
Well, the point I'm trying to make with you is that if we got those matches every single week, it wouldn't have been as exciting as the one that you saw.
That's fair.
So when you hear people say, well, why didn't we get a tag match tonight? Well, why aren't they pushing the tag division? How come that tag match only had 5 minutes before they went to commercial? Because when we get stuff like we got this last show, super awesome, right?
It was.
Maybe you don't have to have that every week.
No, that's true. We don't have to have it all the time. But it was, like I said, for me, it was a chemistry thing. These guys work very, very well together. And you get a match like DIY and Motor City Machine Guns. All of these guys, absolutely great tag team wrestlers. But the chemistry is a little bit off there. So sometimes things look a little clunky. You didn't get that out of this match. And I think that's why, for me, it was match of the night.
It was good, no doubt. It was good, no doubt.
Well, we end up the show with the segment everyone's been waiting for. The OTC, the Visionary, and the Second City Saint face-to-face in the ring. And for me, it was a good segment. It gave an opportunity to build organic heat for the triple threat, especially having Punk point out that neither one of them have ever beat him without the other's help, because they can't. Like throwing that little stinger right there on the end, because you can't, I feel like that was perfect. And then having Punk reference the favor he's owed and thanking the wise man for delivering the tribal chief right there on a silver platter for him gave just enough doubt for Roman to take a look at Heyman right before the brawl we all knew was coming happened to close the show. Good storytelling. That's just bottom line. That's good storytelling.
It was. I love it when shows end on angles.
Well, it was a good one. Mike, what did you think about it?
I thought that everything was really good about it. The pacing was not, it didn't feel rushed. It felt like they had plenty of time to do everything that they needed to do. And, you know, the order in which everybody came out and they got their little bit of time to go between one and the other. And then Punk was the cherry on top of the sundae with the fact that he was out there to cause trouble, and he made that known as soon as he was walking to the ring.
No, absolutely. CM Punk is unmatched, in my opinion, as a storyteller. He can move a storyline like nobody else. And he's got the crowd in the palm of his hand. It's reminiscent of The Rock in the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Jello in the chat saying, left us wanting more like it's supposed to. Absolutely, I agree with that. All in all, SmackDown was a decent show. It's not the best SmackDown I've seen. It's not the worst SmackDown I've seen. But all in all, it was a decent show. I liked it. That'll take us into Raw. Before we go into Raw, I want to remind everybody, go through, click all the things. It helps us out here seeing who's looking at things where should we put content. Helps our algorithm. So make sure you go to all the socials, click all the things. And we'll jump into Raw with that. Raw kicks off with Cena coming out, berating the crowd once again for their abuse during his tenure. This brings out Cody for just a brief moment. I thought we were going to see some fists fly. I thought just for a second they're actually going to throw hands, but Cena walked off, which is good. It's not time yet for them to throw hands. It's going to have to happen at least once before their Mania match, but it's not time yet. So it's good that Cena walked off. I like their slow burning their interactions on the road.
I honestly do not see Cena and Cody exchanging any kind of physicality until the bell rings at WrestleMania.
Okay.
It will be a war of words.
What do you think, Rick?
I could see a slight scuffle that leads to a pull apart, but I would not think that we'd have any kind of serious fight.
Yeah, and that's what I see it being, kind of like the pull apart they did with the end of SmackDown. I could see that kind of, they go at each other and they have to be pulled apart kind of scuffle. I don't see them like having a match or anything. I see there's going to be some physicality, I think, and it may be the SmackDown right before Mania, before it happens, but something's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be the last show before.
I say Cena will get physical with someone. I do not think it's going to be Cody.
Well, and the one reason I want Cena, and it may not be Cody, but I do want to see Cena get physical, is I feel like we're getting the promo side of it. The promo side of John Cena's heel turn. Or excuse me, he's not a heel. He's not a heel. He's not a face. He's a human. But this change in attitude of John Cena, we're getting the promo side of that. But I think it puts the exclamation point at the end if we see a new violent side of John Cena. You know, stepping outside the 5 moves of doom and just beating the shit out of somebody.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is John Cena gave himself an attitude adjustment?
You could say that, yeah. Well played, sir. Well played.
Yes.
All right. For everybody watching, for everybody listening, I hope you're sitting down because if you didn't watch Raw, this is probably the biggest thing for me. After 18 months, the Usos are back. I'm not going to lie. I was not expecting Jay's mystery partner to be his brother, but damn am I glad it was. I enjoyed watching that. It was a great match, and it even ended with the Usos hitting the 1D. I popped. I'm not going to lie. I did. I popped when it happened. I thought it was awesome. And I want both of your opinions about this. Of course, after the match, Gunther shows up. Jay's got the kill shot lined up for the spear, but he trips. And Jimmy hits the ring with a chair. The champ leaves. That ends that segment. I have to give kudos to WWE Creative on this one. I don't know if it was the creative team. I don't know if it was Trips. I don't know if it was Jimmy. Whoever put the idea in place to take a faux pas that happened last week and have him do it again and make it part of the storyline. Well done. Kudos to you.
That was very smart. I really liked that. I thought they leaned into something that they probably didn't have to lean into, and it helped the story.
I completely agree on that. I mean,
yep.
the way things are getting told with that is very good, and I feel like that is probably, well, it's one of the best stories being told right now by WWE.
I can agree with that, and when you pull the curtain back and you think about the fact that, okay, like think about this 5 years ago during the Vince McMahon era. You've got somebody that messes up a dive and fumbles the bag on that. It's going to be forgotten. It never happened. We're going to move on like nothing ever happened. And they didn't do that, and I'm impressed by that they made it part of the story, and they had him mess up again and make it part of the segment that we'll talk about here in just a moment between him and Jimmy. Like it was so well done, in my opinion. That takes us to Lyra Valkyria versus Raquel Rodriguez for the women's IC title. I'm happy to see Lyra Valkyria on the show anytime she wrestles. She has had just a banger of a year, and there's good back and forth here. What I like about this match is you've got Rodriguez able to put her size and strength on display, and Lyra countering it with her speed and agility. She counters a power bomb into a victory roll, retains. Of course, she's immediately attacked by Liv, and Bayley comes out for the save and run the tag team champs out of the ring. Again, it's good storytelling. I don't feel like it didn't get the pop that you would think you would get out of a title match, but it was well done by both Raquel Rodriguez and Lyra Valkyria.
Agreed. These two have pretty decent chemistry, but I really haven't seen anybody that doesn't have decent chemistry with Valkyria.
True.
She's kind of that master skeleton key, so to speak, where pretty much she adapts to whatever style anybody else is jumping in the ring with her with, and still can make the match her own.
No, and I like that they put her with Bayley in that, because I've said 100 times, you put somebody in the ring with Bayley, and Bayley's going to elevate that person. And so having Lyra and Bayley together just makes sense. Rick, what are your thoughts?
I like Lyra Valkyria well enough. I don't think she has it to be the champion of that Intercontinental title. Um, I think she's a little flat, and but I don't think that's technically her fault. Um, I do like the fact that they're apparently plugging her with Bailey because that's going to help her out. But at the same time, I don't want to see Bailey Lyra at WrestleMania.
No.
If we're gonna do Bailey Lyra to put the belt on Bailey, I need to see that quick. And then if you get the belt on Bailey, I'd like to see Bailey Roxanne for the title at WrestleMania. I think that's a better match. Or if you can find a way to get Roxanne to beat Lyra for the title and then do Roxanne Bailey, the flip with the belt. I just don't. I like Lyra. I just think I don't think she's ready.
I get that.
I see that her wrestling style is good, but I think what my interpretation of what Rick is saying is she doesn't have everything else that goes along with the in-ring to do the things that she needs to do to get her to that next level.
That makes sense. I
think she has the same issues that have held Natalya back for years and years and years. She has all the tools, but for some reason she just can't connect. And I think that's been Natalya's biggest problem her entire career. She has all the tools, but for some reason, it's like if Natalya was a color by numbers, I think we're missing a couple of crayons.
Okay. And I can see that. I can see that with Lyra. I think she can get there, but I can agree with that she's not there yet.
Yeah.
Adam Pearce, that poor man. So he's trying and failing several times to give a solution to the problem of Rhea being owed a title shot, a rematch, and Bianca earning a title shot. And so, of course, he gets interrupted by each while he's trying to throw it out there. He finally gets his solution out, and we get Rhea versus Io next week on Raw, and the winner of that match taking on Bianca at WrestleMania. Jello said this in a group chat that we have, and I couldn't agree more, that at that point, Adam Pearce looks like he's ready to look at all three of them and say, don't make me turn this car around. Like he's got that look on his face. It was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love Adam Pearce at the end of his rope. He's a good character when he's at the end of his rope.
He is indeed. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
It's very cathartic to have an outburst every once in a while.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I believe that I can take that from you. Absolutely. We'll talk about that here shortly. What's up, Mike?
I'm not really digging the way that the Women's World Championship deal is going whatsoever. I think that there's a lot of people that are acting out of character in this. I think that either we have a new writer on hand that is trying to force some situations along, or something else, because I feel like nobody's acting as if they were their original character right now, and I know that Bianca has some other things going on in her life right now, that probably is getting her to act that way. But there is no reason whatsoever for Rhea Ripley to be all of a sudden being, for lack of a better term, she's being a brat right now.
She is a bit bratty, but storyline wise, I mean, she's. It seems like they're pushing her to that I'm on an island kind of storyline where Bianca was my friend, and then she came out and she sided with Io. She cost me the match. Blah blah blah. I get where it seems out of character for all of them, honestly. But I think once we get Monday in the books and get that match done, I still think we end up with the triple threat at Mania. But once we get that match out of the way, things kind of line out a little bit.
I hope so. I really do. But going into that next segment with these particular individuals, where Bianca's in the backstage and Adam Pearce is having his mini meltdown back there, where he tells everybody that Bianca is going to be the special guest referee for this match, and she's like, "But I don't know how," and he goes, "Well, you better figure it out."
No, I thought that I liked that. Like, I liked the fact that Adam Pearce was like, when she's like, I don't know how to be a referee. He's like, well, you got a week to figure it out. Have a nice trip. Have a nice trip. Goodbye.
Yes.
Can I tell you why this match isn't working?
Sure.
Because all three people involved in it have stories unfinished, and they're all being jammed together when they shouldn't be.
That's fair.
Bianca has an ongoing story. Rhea never truly wrapped her and Liv's stuff. They had one big blow-off match, and it was just over. Liv took everything from Rhea, and we had one blow-off match, and that was it. Io earned a spot in Elimination Chamber by beating Dakota Kai. That's an instant story between Io and Dakota. That is an instant story. Everybody had their own things going on, and then we just plucked three people and shoved them together. I mean, if you really look at it, there was no reason for Rhea to lose the belt, and she probably should be facing Liv at WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it. Looking over at the chat, and this is going back into some of the things we've already talked about. I've got Jello saying Lyra always looks like she's working at practice speed. I agree. She does keep it kind of slow moving. And also, I feel Bianca is spoiling for a heel turn. I've been thinking Bianca is going to make a heel turn for a long time. Like I think it's what's coming. I still think it's going to come out that she masterminded the whole Jade Cargill thing. I think the Jade Cargill and Naomi going at it is going to be just enough time for people to stop thinking that Bianca was part of it, so that we get the big "it was me, Austin, it was me all along" reveal. Like, I think that's where we're going with that. And of course, Patrick, the guy, has to throw a little something out there. Says, as a reminder, my fellow watcher, we only need 3 more follows on Twitch for Guapo to take a hit in the ring. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Hey, you're the one that.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, you're the one that decided that was going to happen. If you get to a certain thing, and you're going to get your ass handed to you a couple of times.
All right, let's talk about that.
That's your own damn fault.
No, let's talk about that for a second. That's like saying, if I get $1 million, I'm going to do this, this, and this, because you ain't going to get $1 million, but
no,
we got like $997,000.
Yeah. But when you sit in the seat at the dunking booth, eventually someone's going to hit the target. And you're going in the water. You put yourself out there to have somebody hurt you. if this happens. At some point, it's going to happen. You really have no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Jay Conrad Photography. Josh, welcome to the show. Glad you're here tonight. He says a hit from Big Said. That's very, very possible. J-Reb says, so J-Reb 1, J-Reb 2, and J-Reb 3 incoming. I got plenty of email addresses. I'm going to need you to calm down, sir. No, I'm a man of my word. If we get to that point, something's going to happen. We'll have to see what it is. There's going to be a poll. Something's going to happen, but I am a man of my word. Getting back to the show, we got the slap heard round the world, literally, because they're off in England. So after sitting down and talking with his brother, and it was a good talk. I liked that Big Jim was like, look, what's going on? You missed here, you missed there, you're slipping, you're tripping, and you keep this up, you're not going to win at WrestleMania. And Jay's like, you know what I know the crazy part is? I don't know if I can beat Gunther. And Jay says you can't, or Jimmy says you can't. And of course, Jay gets mad and he's going to walk off. He's like, no, this guy, he's not going to, you can't beat him. But the Jay Uso that was a right-hand man, that guy can. The Jay Uso that won the Royal Rumble, that guy can. The Jay Uso that became main event, Jay Uso, that guy can beat Gunther. Which was good, brother hyping up brother. And then Gunther walks by and Jimmy goes to talk to him and says, hey, you and me next week on Raw. Gunther says, oh, okay, just don't slip and fall like your brother. And then he slapped the piss out of him. Like, that was impressive.
The most impressive thing out of it was the sell.
Yes.
Gunther's sell of the slap was the most impressive thing out of the whole thing.
You do realize that when Gunther chops Jimmy this next week, Jimmy's soul is going to leave his body a la Doctor Strange.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's going to happen. No question about that. But you know what? I'm here for it. I think it's going to be good. And I think I've heard a lot of people. I know the IWC is not your favorite thing in the world, Rick, but I've heard a lot of people saying that putting Big Jim in this storyline is actually saving the angle because it's starting to get stale, which, anytime something lasts more than 2 shows, they're going to say it's getting stale, and I disagree. But that's some of the talk that's going around.
Jay was the guy that everyone was clamoring to beat Roman Reigns. Jay was the guy that everyone was saying, oh, no, it can't be Solo. Oh, no, it can't be Sammy. It has to be Jay. It has to be Jay. And the second that Jay is put into a position to be the main event, all those same people, just like they always do, turn on the very person that they promoted and propped up. It's the same old thing with the stupid 7% of the ignorant wrestling community. I won't even call them the internet wrestling community. They're the ignorant wrestling community. It's the same thing all the time. We prop somebody up, and as soon as they get almost where we wanted them, we tear them down. It's ridiculous.
They did the same thing to Cody whenever he finished the story.
Of course they did. Of course they did. This is the same group of people that used to complain that Vince McMahon set people up for failure. What do you think all of you idiots are doing? It's the same thing.
It is. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
I'm not wrong. I know I'm not. You don't have to tell me. I know I'm right.
So we go from that into Dragon Lee versus El Grande Americano. Now, this is meant to be a funny match, and it was. With Chad Gable, El Grande Americano holding his own against a veteran Dragon Lee. In the end, though, we get Dragon Lee's mask ripped off, which is a no-no in Lucha Libre. And so he's got to keep his face hidden. So he ends up losing the match. Now, while this was meant to be a poke at there's no way that could be Chad Gable, right? This may have been the most physical match of the night, in my opinion.
Well, there is no physical proof that it's Chad Gable. So,
Gracias. Come on, man.
Chad Gable doesn't have the copyright on that.
Gracias.
Could be anybody.
Thank you.
Could be anybody.
True.
I heard
Could be anybody.
Chad was sick that night and couldn't work.
Yeah, that's what we all heard, that he was sick, couldn't be there. I like where they're going with this.
Why don't we talk about the rest of the fake outrage about the AI video that was done to prop up Grande Americano? All of the, why don't they do this for all the other luchadors? Because it's a tongue-in-cheek thing done for a heel, you idiot.
Thank you.
That's why they didn't do it.
Now, I want to step back for a second, kind of pull the curtain back on this. It is very tongue-in-cheek, and it's a fun little segment that they're doing. I like it. But again, going back to your ignorant wrestling community, when you talk about the outrage, I read so many different stories today of people that are outraged and calling the entire thing racist. It's the equivalent of blackface.
Oh.
Yeah, I had the same reaction. I had the exact same reaction. So I want to hear what you guys say about that.
Here's what I got to say about that. I would bet a large sum of money, probably larger than I'd be willing to part with, but I won't be parting with it because I'll explain why. I'll bet that money that every single person that complained and said it was racist, if you go back and look on their timelines or their statuses or their DMs, you would see that is a person who clamors for the return of the Attitude Era. Snowflake, you couldn't handle the Attitude Era, okay? You couldn't handle it. So much shit went down in the Attitude Era that people today would lose their minds over. Lose their minds over. You couldn't handle it. So please, spare me your, we need to go back to the Attitude Era when you think an AI video for a white guy pretending to be a luchador is racist. Stop. Stop.
Insert video of Dr. One Hong Lo. It's ridiculous where some people go with these things. Like it really is. Mike, you got anything you want to add?
No.
No, he doesn't. Because what are you going to say? I mean, come on.
It's ridiculous. It really is. Again, I do think this was the most physical match of the night. And I like that they took something tongue-in-cheek and made it. Because Chad Gable is next level in the ring. I think we can all agree on that. And Dragon Lee is a good person.
If this was the Attitude Era, Grande Americano would be coming out in a sombrero with a poncho throwing tortillas at people. So please spare me. You're racist.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. Well, we end up going to our main event, which is, before we get to the main event, we got a segment from CM Punk where he comes out and reiterates that Seth and Roman can't beat him without the others' help. Says that he's got the triple threat, but it's not what he wants. He's doing all of this. He's still not getting exactly what it is he wants. So he's going to make sure that he gets what he wants. And since the other two couldn't be bothered to show up this Friday, tomorrow night, they're going to do a contract signing. And he's going to be looking over the contract really, really closely because he is going to get what he wants. And I think that's, going back to what Jello said, that's a good thing. You know, leave the crowd wanting more. That's how it's supposed to be.
I got to hear from one Jake Roberts once upon a time. And that was one of the things that he pointed out to me is, and I can't say it any other way than how he said it. He said, "Kid, wrestling is like making love to a woman. You gotta send them home happy, but you always want to have them wanting more."
Okay. And I could definitely hear Jake saying that. But I think it's going to be very well done tomorrow night when they do the contract signing. I'm looking forward to it. But it does bring us to Braun Breaker versus Penta for the IC title. This was a good match start to finish. Anytime you put two stars of that caliber in the ring together, that's what you're going to get. Let's be real about it. Of course, with that, we get Dom and Carlito coming out. Dom causes the DQ. Earlier, before the match, he's offered Penta a spot in Judgment Day. Finn comes out as well. Dom hands a chair to Penta, offering him a chance to become part of the Judgment Day, which is a chair that Dom would end up eating. And Balor ends up taking Penta out, and that's how we close the show. I like where they're going here. I like not so much that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind seeing Finn and Penta go at it, but I like the cracks they're putting in the Judgment Day because, hashtag free Finn. Throw it back about a year. So I like what they're doing there, and I'm interested to see where that story goes.
I think we're definitely headed for a multi-man match for the Intercontinental title. I can see Penta, Dom, and Finn all being involved in it. There's very possible they could even add Ludwig Kaiser and a couple others. But if they do that match, if they do a multi-man match for the Intercontinental title, it does not need to be a ladder match. We do not need a ladder match for just because you've got multi-men going after one belt does not necessitate hanging it above a ladder. There's all those guys that I named off are more than talented enough to pull off a multi-man match without all the bells and whistles.
I agree wholeheartedly. I do want to stop for just a second. Just got a subscription from Odessa MC. Appreciate you so much for that. Thank you for the subscription. That's awesome. I hope the guy is sitting in front of his computer because it is time for the segment of the show that everybody loves. It is time for Notes from the Clown Show. I don't know if he's sitting there. All right, so if you've got a 2x4 and you've got spikes running all through it, what do? You hit somebody with it, right? That makes sense. Or do you pick them up and slam them down on top of it? The toothbrush of doom in Jon Moxley's back was complete and utter insanity. And I wondered for a little while, the first time I watched it, I wondered if Yuta Wheeler trying to pull it out of his back was a work. Like, oh no, I can't get it out. But the more I watch it, the more I realize there was no work to that at all. It was stuck.
The skin was pulling away from the meat.
Mm-hmm. Why in the world? I get it's Jon Moxley. I'm gonna bleed. I'm gonna bleed, and I'm gonna bleed, and stab me in the forehead with a fork, et cetera, et cetera. But this was a bit far, in my opinion.
The reason why is because there's not an adult in the room to say no.
That's true. Mike, what do you think?
I think that Jon Moxley is pretty well getting to do whatever he wants to do, regardless of how sick and twisted it is. And that's just his forte. That's what he was. I mean, before he even went to WWE, he was doing this kind of stupid crap with,
Yeah.
sawzalls in the middle of the ring and everything else. And for him, it's like, man, this is gonna kick ass, and that's the mentality that he has, and he has no psychology whatsoever. I will say this. The only positive I'm going to say out of this whole thing is I always, always, always say, why bring a weapon out if you're not going to use it?
That's very true.
So they actually did use it. I'm not going to say it was in very good judgment, but they actually did bring something out and they actually used said weapon. So I will give them half a point for that.
No, they don't even get half a point for that because the goal of bringing a weapon to the ring is to use the weapon in such a manner to tell the story without damaging the other person.
In my opinion, John Moxley has forfeited any right whatsoever to be welcomed back to WWE.
Oh yeah,
Because
absolutely.
what he has done is he has taken out his dick and pissed all over the 2.5 years that they spent scrubbing the mud show outlaw indie bullshit off of him. And he has continued to piss and defecate all over his Intercontinental, his WWE tag, and his WWE World Heavyweight title reigns. He has continued to thumb his nose or throw middle fingers at all of the people that worked with him to get him to a place where he became a plausible national global name. And now he just shows up to do dumb mud show bullshit indie crap on the second biggest show in the country, in the same way that In-N-Out Burger is number 2 to McDonald's. So I mean, he doesn't get another shot. If I'm in control, he doesn't get another shot. He's done.
No, I'm right there with you because
And here's the thing. And you know who's just as guilty? You know who's just as guilty for participating in it?
who's that?
Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland is just as guilty because Adam Copeland should know better. Adam Copeland was not a mud show bullshit indie dork. Adam Copeland grew up and was trained the correct way, and he didn't have to go through all of the scrubbing that John Moxley had to go through. Adam Copeland should know better, and the fact that it still went down, normally I would blame Tony Khan for this, but we all know that Tony Khan doesn't know how to say no. The adult in the room in this match was Adam Copeland, and he allowed that to happen.
Agreed. 100% agreed. So I'm going to look over at the chat here. J-Reb says we need a gif of me dressed as Pennywise doing the jig he did in the movie for the Notes from the Clown Show opener. Don't tempt me with a good time, bro.
I may be able to know some people to make that happen, but it
Josh,
did take October to happen.
Josh with J. Conrad Photography say first time he's seen the intro, so he's like, WTF was that? It says Guapo is homie the clown. Nah, because homie don't play that. Jello in the chat saying Moxley's become a carny act, and that's the point I wanted to get to next is in the last year, has there been any movement in Moxley's career, in his character, in his career? It's a straight line. There's been no upward movement. There's been no advancement whatsoever, which is set aside all the carny bullshit that you're talking about. That reason alone would be enough for me to not bring him back to WWE.
I don't even think it's a straight line. I think it's constant downward. I don't see him. He hasn't had any upward mobility in years. Like the first 6 to 8 months that he was in AEW, they really made him made him mean something.
Mhm.
Like when he jumped, it was a big deal, and he looked great, and he came off great because he still had that WWE shine on him. That's all gone. That's all gone. You look at him now. I think if somebody didn't know that he was Dean Ambrose before, if they just came into wrestling in the last month or so and they weren't online, I bet you couldn't convince somebody that he'd been there.
No, I agree. Looking over the chat, Eska1981 says, I do like what they're doing with Swerve, though. So do I, because Swerve straight up told Moxley, I'm everything you used to be. You used to talk about you've been in Texas death matches. Well, I've won them. You know, you've dropped pints of blood. I've dropped buckets. So I'm who you wish you could be. I like what they're doing with it. I think it's a good way to start moving Moxley out of the spotlight.
The best thing that they could do is put that belt back on Swerve.
Mm-hmm.
And let him continue. That they made a mistake taking that belt off of Swerve to begin with.
Well, I mean, it is the clown show. Speaking of which, clown show note, next one. Chris Jericho gets trolled by a kid in the crowd with better abs than him. That was the funniest shit. If you have not seen that video, and kudos to Chris for staying with it. So this kid flips him off. And Jericho walks over and says, you don't even know what that means. And the kid's like, yeah, I do. And they have their back and forth. The kid tells him, F you, all this stuff. And then Jericho's like, you'll never be a champ because you don't look like me. The kid raises his shirt up. He's got a six-pack. Like, Jericho's like, what? It was funny. I cracked up.
That kid made Finn Balor look flabby.
A little bit, yeah. Like it was great. Like when you're what does he call himself now? Nuevo or Nueva? Whenever you're Chris Jericho and you start getting outshined by kids in the crowd, that's some clown show stuff right there.
I feel like sometime in the last 3 years, there was a backstage discussion while everyone was drinking and impaired. And somebody mentioned, I don't think that there's anybody out here who could tank their career worse than so-and-so. And Jericho said, hold my beer.
You know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right. So we're going to go on to the third and final note from the clown show. Timeless Tony Storm and Thunder Rosa. I was all for this tag team. I like Thunder Rosa. I love what they do with Tony Storm. I'm happy about it. Except for the fact that the idea is, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put these two together against somebody that nobody knows who the hell they are. And then we're going to have those people no-sell everything, including the hip attack, and then let them win. What do you think? Good idea? Let's do it? Like, where was that production meeting? And then they're trying to name the tag team. Timeless Tony Storm, Thunder Rosa. I know I haven't been doing this very long, but I can immediately say, call them Thunderstorm. Thunder Rosa, Tony Storm. Call them Thunderstorm. It's not hard. No, they didn't go with that. Okay, if you're not going to do that, Timeless Rosa. Rosa Timeless. Just something. No, they came up with Thunder Tits.
Well, doesn't that actually make more sense? Because her whole thing
No!
tits out. I mean, isn't that her thing? Isn't that part of what she says? She says tits out. Doesn't she say
does.
that?
Tits, head up, tits out. She does say that, but Thunder Tits? Seriously?
I mean, look, I'm not saying it's great. I'm saying that at least it made some kind of sense. And that's more than you can generally ask for when you're talking about AEW.
You're going to have kids at school that watch this going, hey, did y'all see Thunder Tits last night?
No, you're wrong, Guapo. Because Kids don't watch AEW. Kids don't watch AEW. The only people who watch AEW are ignorant wrestling fans who sit in their basements and type on their keyboards while mom brings them a juice box and a pot to piss in. And aside from those people, the only one that watches it are indie wrestlers who are trying to angle themselves onto the show as extras. That's
I
it.
mean, I'll give you that. Mike, you look like you had something you wanted to say there.
Okay. First off, what parent in their right mind is actually going to have their kids watch All Elite Wrestling?
I mean, that's fair.
Number two, I see what they're doing. And I
Fucking
freaking
hate
hate it.
There's a joke there, I assure you. Just a little inside thing. All right, so that, ladies and gentlemen, was Notes from the Clown Show. It's Tony Khan, you are a clown, and Adam Copeland, so are you. And I refuse to call you Cope. I refuse to call you Ed. You don't deserve that anymore. So I'll call you Adam Copeland. You too, sir, are a clown. Which brings us to last Saturday. Squared Circle Pro Spring Break, the literal version. It was a good show. I enjoyed it thoroughly. We had Bobby Munoz and Cholo going to a time limit draw. We had Brian Rage Rivera and Aluvio going up against Baby Samoa and a mystery partner that turned out to be Damian Matrix. Like, all hell broke loose in that one. We had Ryan Riven, Jeb Bingham, and Draven Reeves in a triple threat for the iPay-per-view belt. And now Draven Reeves is a two-time Heck Yeah Radio iPay-per-view champion. I will say this, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, you need to. You absolutely... Jeb Bingham pulling off a double Spanish fly was absolute magic. I enjoyed that very thoroughly. I hope everybody's sitting down for this. After 2 restarts and a ref battle, your new Squared Circle Pro Tag Team Champions, La Migra, El Diablo Blanco and Chris Whiting. I wasn't expecting that one. That was a hell of a deal. Phoenix got the win over Damo to win the Squared Circle Pro title. And the one and only, the OTB Lilith Blood wins the Last Dance Texas Death Match against El Gringo Loco. What a hell of a match that was, too. Absolute insanity till the last bell, and it was great. We've got Jay Conrad in the chat saying pictures coming soon. They're going to be great. You're going to want to see them. If you haven't seen the show, I strongly suggest you go to heckyeahradio.com, click the link, watch the show, because this is the first time I've been to a Squared Circle Pro show where everything went crazy. It seemed as though it was chaos. I've been to several Squared Circle Pro shows where there was controlled chaos. But there were times in this particular show where it looked like we were lacking some of that control for the chaos. So that's left some questions in the air that there's no one better to answer than Rick Elsey. What the hell happened?
Why am I the person to answer that question? TJ Mundell is the GM. He handles the day-to-day.
TJ Mundell does handle the day-to-day, but it doesn't.
He's the one who came out and restarted the tag match twice.
He did. Absolutely, he did. He came out and said also that there were some questions that needed to be answered. We'd have answers by the end of the night.
Did he provide those answers?
No, he wasn't the one. He didn't provide answers, but you provided a few yourself at the very end of the show. If you decide to watch this, please watch it all the way to the end, because holy hell. There were some there was a bit of an outburst. You were talking about those being a bit cathartic. Would you like to talk about that at all?
No.
Okay.
What I will say is that I didn't say anything that didn't need to be said. And there is more to what was said than you saw. And TJ knows what those things are. You notice that he stormed off before I finished speaking to him.
He did.
Which was extremely disrespectful. And I will say this. On May 24th, there is going to be a mandatory town hall where every SCP employee, talent, staff, production, everyone will have their presence required. And of course, fans will be in attendance too. And I will address everything.
Okay, so the answers that people are looking for are coming. They're just coming May 24th.
I didn't say the answers people were looking for were coming. I said I would address things. Because I do believe that no matter what I say, truth or not, will be taken out of context by people who disagree with me, or will just be flat out ignored by people who have a different agenda than mine. So I don't believe that I will be able to please everyone, because I can tell you that for 17 years, I have been trying to please several people, and, well, that's over. So on May 24th, we'll have a town hall. We'll go over everything that everybody needs to know, and SCP will have a clear path forward on May 24th at Tornado Slam.
Okay. One more thing I want to bring up, just because if you only knew the messages I have been receiving since Saturday night, and one of the most common ones is asking if you would be willing to address what was said by one Nolan Phillips in the ring about something seems fishy because all of his guys received letters, said thank you for your service and best wishes in your future endeavors.
Nolan must be pretending that he's alone in that. I can tell you right off the bat, I sent letters. My office sent letters to about 60% of our roster. So Nolan may take offense to the fact that he lost most of his guys. Whose fault is that? Nolan surrounded himself with people who wanted a lot of money to do not a lot. So whose fault is that?
That's very fair. That's very fair. I hope that answers some of the questions that have been coming into me.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why is it that you get questions? Our fans get like Richie Wong, who right now is just exploding online with whatever he wants to put online, truthful or not. TJ apparently has been having his DMs blown up. How come nobody's asking me the questions? How come nobody's coming to me? How come I'm not being asked to address anything except here? In hindsight, That's something I'd like to know.
I can, of course, can't answer for everybody that's sending
Of course you
messages,
can.
but
Of course you can, John. Of course you can.
we
This is
saw
my
a side
point.
of
This
you.
is my point.
We saw a side of you at the end of the show Saturday that I feel like a lot of people are maybe feel like you're a bit less approachable than you have been in the past. That's the nicest way I can put it.
Well, that sounds like that's their personal problem.
Sounds like an them, not an issue. Huh?
I have been the most approachable person that they've ever known when it comes to wrestling, because, and I'm sure that Mike can attest to what I'm about to say. The majority of promoters in this business are as unapproachable as hell because it's their way or the highway. I've never been that person. Maybe it's time that I started being that person. I had somebody tell me about 16 years ago. This was their exact words. If you're not an asshole, you can't succeed in this business.
I feel you've done a
Maybe
good
it's
job
time.
of proving that wrong over the last 17 years.
Well, we'll see.
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where this goes. Mike, do you have anything you want to add in on this?
Okay. My position at SCP is I am a backstage producer, and I get paid to make sure that things are done in a timely manner, and that people are where they need to be at the right times.
Okay.
I have to pull myself into a position where I am laser focused on my job because everybody else has to be focused on theirs.
Makes sense.
Right now, at this moment in time, yes, I was aware that what Rick had gone out there and said. And me being a promoter myself, I've been on the end of that where you get to that point and you've got to let something out. And he reached a breaking point.
Makes
And
sense.
there's a lot of look. People want to say that Saturday night was so shocking. That was tame compared to what I would have liked to have said.
Damn.
I've spent 17 years trying to please everyone. Give people fun wrestling to watch, honor tradition, keep kayfabe. And last year, I went all out to do everything that I could to raise the profile of West Texas wrestling.
Make it legendary.
And all that while, the whole year, constantly fighting to get people in the building and get people out and participate in the meet and greets. And then the first show that I don't do anything crazy and I just go have a nice show in January, we sell out. Makes me think that 60% of the roster is not needed.
I could see where we could go from there. I'm going to list a couple of things that are here in the chat, and then I have one more thing to ask you to address. In the chat says, I'm surprised Nolan didn't get one of those letters. I mean, that's funny. Douglas Hoke says, what about Medusa? Is she required to attend the town hall meeting as the women's general manager?
Nolan didn't get a letter because Nolan has a special contract, and it would cost me more money to cut Nolan than it would to keep him.
Makes sense.
Medusa is no longer the women's GM. Medusa's contract with us ended after the all women's show, and the women's division is on hold.
Okay.
So no, she is not required to be there.
One of the things in the chat says Guapo's asking the questions and Rick is dodging.
Who says
in the
I'm
chat?
dodging?
I didn't say it.
Who said I'm dodging? Who said I'm dodging?
I believe that might be Seraph.
Okay. Exactly which question did I dodge?
Again, this isn't me. I'm just reading the chat.
I'm just asking. Well, he's typing. He's typing in the chat. So which question did I dodge?
I invite you to answer to that. And while they do, one more thing to address, and it's something that was brought up several times in my DMs, and that is, would you care to give a response to the last thing that one Josh Ryan said before the show went off? And I'm quoting here, so understand this is a quote. This isn't, I'm not saying it, it's a quote. But it was, that is rich, coming from somebody who sits their fat ass behind the bar all night.
I have constantly battled with Josh Ryan to get him to a place where he was a manageable talent. He has had several jobs, most of which he fails at. And he also likes to run his mouth when it's not appropriate. So when we have our town hall on May 24th, Josh might regret those words.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I'm looking down at the clock.
I'm still very interested in what I've dodged.
I haven't received. I've received no answer to that.
Well, of course not, because he's a troll who sits and types like his opinion means anything.
I'm staying out of that. We have come to the 9:30 mark, so it is time to close the show out. So as I always do, one at a time, I want to invite you to speak to the people listening at home, the people watching, the wrestling world in general. Mike, we'll start with you. What are your final thoughts, sir?
Everything that you may see or hear, take things with a grain of salt and try to put yourself in the position of that person. You know, until you've done things like what myself and what Rick have done, and be a promoter and have to deal with the finances and the booking and all of the other things.
And the children who masquerade as adults.
I don't know why I just heard CM Punk, but
anywho, yep, just, you know, there's things that are coming, you know, from beyond what anybody else is knowing that's going on. So, you know, really and truly, show up to your independent shows, show up to SCP, and that see if your questions get answered.
Rick, final thoughts from you?
Final thoughts regarding televised wrestling. Super excited about the build to WrestleMania. Can't wait to see what they do next. Final thoughts about independent wrestling. West Texas, strap in, because we're just getting started.
And you ain't even lying. It's getting wild. And as for myself, final thoughts. I couldn't have said it better.
Do you really think that 17 years of pent up came out in 3 minutes?
No, not even a little bit.
Strap in.
It's going to get wild. It's going to get crazy. And that's exactly what we want in West Texas independent wrestling. So if you're in this area, make sure you are going to the Squared Circle Pro Show. Get your questions answered there. See where we're going there. Go to your BCW shows. There's all sorts of great matches happening there. The storylines, everything. West Texas independent wrestling is so hot right now. And it's just getting hotter. So make sure you're taking care of your independent wrestling. As far as the TV stuff, I'm with you guys. I'm so excited about where we're going on the road to WrestleMania. It's good stuff all the way around. Jello says to all the internet wrestling fans, wrestling is an entertainment show. You should not get any more worked up about it than you would over a sitcom. That's fair. That's fair. I get worked up. Wrestling is my drug. I've said it since we started this podcast, and I will say it till I can't speak anymore. So I want to thank everybody that's been with us tonight, been in the chat, kept the chat going. Everybody that's watching, everybody that's listening, thank you so much for being a part of this show and allowing us a place to come to you on Thursday nights. Mike, Rick, thank you both so much for being on the show tonight. It's always a pleasure having you on. And I believe that's going to do it for us tonight. So we will be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. right here. If you haven't done it yet, as soon as we're done, click the About on any of the socials and check out our Discord server. Big things going to be happening there starting next week. And until next Thursday, I'm Guapo. That's Mike Caldwell. That's Rick Elsey. We're not your average marks. Catch y'all next week. Yeah.